everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lauren and today we're going to be talking about some of the lesser known clairs, which are Clairalience and Clairgustance. Now these clairs are some of my favorites to talk about because people are like, wait, what? You can smell and you can taste psychic hits? And the answer is yes. Maybe not as frequently as some of your other clairs, but they are there and they absolutely do work. So if you are new here, welcome. My name is Lauren and I am a psychic development coach. And here on my channel, I like to empower you guys to trust in your psychic abilities, use them and strengthen them. And so I have a bunch of videos here on how to do that and how to feel protected and safe while you're doing so. So let's first talk about what a clair is. So the clairs are basically how you receive psychic information. So you get a psychic hit, but the clairs are how that comes through. So did you see it? Did you hear it? Did you feel it? And in this case, did you taste it or smell it? And basically these clairs can individually be strengthened, they can be shut off, you can use all of them at once or none of them. Through my exercises and through this video, I'll show you how you can strengthen them, identify them, and then actually use them in readings. Now if you aren't sure if it's a clair, basically think about our five senses. We can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. And so that's the same way we receive psychic information. We just receive it through our psychic senses, but I like to think of it as an extension of those normal senses. So it's psychic hearing, psychic seeing. Now I do cover this way more in depth in my video courses. So if you want to join my courses, I will have those linked down below. I'm going to give you a lot more context, a lot more exercises, some practice, and basically just kind of give you the context of how to start utilizing these and receive that information so that you can start reading for yourself and others. And I'm combining both of these clairs in this video because the exercises and techniques are very similar. And usually I find that people are usually strengthening both at once. I think there's some people that would argue that your taste and your smell actually come from basically the same place. I'm just kind of lumping them together in this video. So let's talk about the names Clairgustance and Clairalience. So first, Clairgustance, if we break it down, this is a French word. Clair means clear and gustance means taste. So we have clear tasting. And then with Clairalience, same thing, clair meaning clear, but alience is smelling. So if you're trying to describe somebody who uses Clairgustance a lot, you would say, oh, they are very Clairgustant. And then if you're just talking about Clairgustance as a whole, you say Clairgustance Clairalience. And then vice versa with Clairalience. If someone uses their Clairalience skill a lot, you would say, oh, they are very Clairalient. I am very Clairalient. So those words kind of confuse people, but basically one's a noun, one's an adjective. So when we're talking about Clairgustance and Clairalience, we're talking about the psychic smelling and the psychic tasting. And basically how this shows up is when you taste something or you smell something without actually having the source in front of you or putting like food or, the taste in your actual mouth. Now, I have heard that some people will do readings purely with their Clairgustance or Clairalience skill. So it is a thing, it's out there. This might be stronger for some people than others. And it's totally not wrong, it's just a different way of using your clairs. So the most common way I see people experience this is by being able to smell or taste something in relation to like a spirit that's around. For example, if your grandma is around, all of a sudden in spirit, your grandma in spirit is around, all of a sudden you might smell perfume. And you don't have that perfume anywhere in your house. You just smell her like very, very clearly. So I actually find that a lot of people have had Clairalient experiences, but they just forget, or they're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that was totally a smell. And sometimes this might happen too, like if you feel like your grandfather's around and maybe he smoked a lot of pipe tobacco and you smell that pipe tobacco. Another way that people experience it is they might smell a food or a certain smell associated with like a family member or a person. And that food might be very associated with, again, grandma. Like I feel like those are the best examples that I have. But usually tastes and smells, they really are, I think it's like one of our most sensitive senses. And because of that, when we taste or we smell things, it can bring like instant memories back to us. And so I think that when we experience this like smell or taste sensation psychically, it can be really powerful and it can hit us really hard because it kind of just comes out of nowhere, and it's very jarring because it's so strong and powerful, even though that thing isn't necessarily there creating that scent or taste. One of my most clairalient experiences that I've ever had was when I was studying at a metaphysical store here in Colorado. That store is actually, the building is in an old crematorium. So there's a lot of spirit and activity in there. It's kind of cool to be able to take classes in there. And as I was sitting there through one of these classes, I just got this overwhelming smell of, what is it called? I think it's formaldehyde, the word that I'm thinking of. But it's basically that chemical that they use to like preserve bodies. Is it embalming fluid? I don't know. But it was that smell. And I think I've been to enough funerals that I kind of like know what that smell is and what it's associated with. But anyway, I was in that class and I smelt it so intensely. And the teacher was talking, and it had been like probably 5 minutes, and I was still smelling this smell. And I think I turned to the person next to me and was like, do you smell that? Am I like the only person in here that's smelling it? Like, it almost gave me a headache. That's how strongly it came through. And then when we kind of break to do practice, I kind of asked some other people in the room because I was curious if it was psychic or not. And a lot of people were like, no, we don't smell that. No, we don't smell that. So I think I was actually picking up on the energy of what that old space used to be. And then as soon as I like got confirmation and I was like, oh, okay, this is psychic, it was like the smell went away. And it was like, okay, message received, we're not going to keep giving her that smell. So that is a really distinct way of smelling or tasting that could come through. And I want you guys to not just think about like perfumes and smoke and like food, but think about how things taste or smell. Think about just textures in general. Like if I ask you to imagine, putting a lemon in your mouth, that's food, but you immediately might pucker up at the idea of biting into a lemon. Your mouth already knows what that feels like. And there's this funny like exercise of, anything I tell you, pretend sniffing it or putting it in your mouth. Like pretend I say, taste what a football tastes like. You might not have ever put a football in your mouth, but you know what it feels like. And so textures or tastes might come through, but it might not be super clear on if it's a food, if it's an object. You might get like very bitter taste. You might get very it might feel very chalky all of a sudden. So the key here with Clairgustance and Clairalience is to understand the meanings of the smells and the tastes that are coming through. The biggest thing with Clairgustance and Clairalience through any of these techniques is to understand that you might have to go further and ask for a meaning. For example, if I'm asking, hey, what do I need to know about this wedding that's coming up, pretending I'm going to a wedding, and then all of a sudden I taste something bitter, like, what does that mean? And so you might have to go a little bit further. You might have to ask that taste, hey, what do you mean? What does that mean? And it could mean that there's going to be really crappy food. Maybe you were tasting the bitter food. Or maybe bitter was kind of more symbolic or a representation of maybe there's going to be like bitter people there. I don't know. So that's the big thing with Clairgustance and Clairalience. Honestly, with any of the clairs, but I find that it's a little bit harder with these because you have to ask, okay, why am I getting this taste or smell? And even if you are getting like a solid like food or a very solid smell, just because you're smelling a flower doesn't always mean that answer is literal. And I've talked about that before in some of my other videos on understanding if a psychic hit is symbolic or literal. So you really have to extra apply that principle here to Clairgustance and Clairalience. For example, orange could literally be an orange, and maybe you need to go to an orange grove. Or it could mean something sweet, something fresh, something new energy. So there can be a lot of different meanings to these things, and the biggest thing you have to do is in the middle of a reading, stop, go further, ask the psychic source, what does that mean? And if you aren't sure and you don't get a clear answer, ask them to show you in a different way. So now we're going to jump into actual exercises you can do to strengthen your Clairalience and your Clairgustance. And both of these are going to be kind of the same, so I'm just going to lump it all together. So these exercises are more just about daily kind of getting an awareness of your Clairgustance and Clairalience. It's not exactly, a reading where you're trying to get an outcome or a question answered. And so the first exercise that I like to do is just practicing mindfulness. And so this mindfulness can be being aware of the things that you smell and you taste throughout your day. So as you eat foods, being very cognizant of how the texture is on your tongue, what it smells like, what it tastes like. And as you go about your day, smelling the smells that happen around you. And when you focus more on the awareness of your natural senses, your taste and your smell, you're just telling yourself and the universe, hey, I'm paying attention to this more, I'm paying attention to my literal senses, but I'm also paying attention to my psychic senses. So just having more of a focus on it helps you kind of have more of a focus on it when you're doing a psychic reading as well. The next exercise I have for you is just as you go about your day and maybe ask your spiritual team questions, really expecting to get answers through your Clairalience and Clairgustance. So expecting to get a taste and a smell. This is all about setting the intention before you ask for a question to be answered from the psychic source that you're talking to. So it's as simple as just saying, hey, I'm using this Clair and I'm expecting to get information from it this way. My next technique, just like I say in all the other Clairs videos, is to find meditation or hypnosis tracks that will help you with this. I will honestly be surprised if there are Clairgustance and Clairalience meditations out there. I would be surprised. It's on my list to create. If you want to see it, let me know, and then maybe I can bump it up to the top of my videos that I need to create. But again, through meditation, you're just setting the intention, hey, I'm going to use these Clairs. I want to strengthen them. I want to pay attention to them. I want to trust them. And by just focusing on them and thinking about them more, you're going to pay more attention when those psychic hits come up in that way. The next technique you can use is to set affirmations like in your cell phone or even on sticky notes around your house. And you can say, I am clairaudient, or no, I am clairgustant, I am clairalient. And when you see those and you're constantly saying it out loud to yourself, you're sort of setting the intention and you're training your mind to be like, no, this is how it is. This is how I am. I do receive psychic hits clairaliently. And I always put them in my phone, and you can set alarms so that the alarms pop up and you have to snooze them and then you have to read it and see it. Or you can do like an affirmation app that has like a widget. And the widget will cycle through some of your affirmations. So those are my favorite ways of doing it because I just find that simple reprogramming of my thoughts can help me a lot to develop these Clairs. Another exercise that I absolutely love is basically using playing cards, Zener cards, or my favorite, the psychic development cards, to exercise your Clairalience and your Clairgustance. So in the back of this deck, there are color cards that are specifically made for psychic games. And there's a couple games you can play, and I've talked about them in my other videos. But basically what you do is you try to guess where certain cards are. So you lay them face down, and then you use your Clairalience or your Clairgustance to try to smell where the right card is. And I know it sounds crazy, but it totally works. So to start out with Clairgustance and Clairalience, the thing is you have to first identify what a color smells like. So pretend we have yellow and orange, and we want to find the other yellow and orange cards in the deck. So what we first need to do is ask our guides to give us a smell or a taste for yellow, and same with orange. Give me a smell or a taste for orange. And then you will want to have these two separate things that you know smells different. And then what you can do is shuffle these all in here, and then you might pull out a card and say, hey, what color is this card? Give me a smell, give me a taste. And then you have to see if it matches up with your memory of what that orange or that yellow looks like. And if it doesn't, then you can move on, and then you can flip it over and see if you were right. Another way of doing this is you can also tell your guides, hey, orange to me is going to smell like an actual orange, yellow to me is going to smell like a banana, and blue is going to smell like a Slurpee, I don't know. So you can set those smells and those tastes ahead of time, and then work with your guides, and when you ask these questions, really try to force the Clairalience and the Clairgustance to come through. And I promise, just like any of the other clairs, the more you practice and the more you do it, the more it will get stronger. I'm very curious if some of you, your strongest clair is Clairgustance or Clairalience, because I think that's so cool if it is. I feel like it's not one that comes naturally to most. All right, let's talk next about actual reading exercises using your Clairalience or your Clairgustance. Now again, remember with all of these, you have to assign that meaning or ask that meaning after the fact, because a certain smell or a certain taste might mean one thing to one person and another thing to another person. Or it could be very literal, or it could be symbolic. And again, we come back to an intention as our very first reading exercise. And this is, as you're reading somebody, tell your guides, tell your spiritual team, hey, I only want to receive the information clairaliently or clairgustantly. And that intention alone can be enough to purely start getting more psychic hits that are clairgustant and clairalient. Now, one of my favorite exercises is using a precognitive calendar for my clairs. And this is basically printing out a calendar and looking at it for like the next month ahead. And you basically ask, hey, what do I need to know about this month coming up? And you look at maybe the whole week or a day, or the month in general, and you ask for psychic hits in relation to that question. But again, you request that those psychic hits come through with Clairalience or Clairgustance. So you're saying, I want to know what my week looks like ahead, but I want it in smell or taste form. And this calendar I've actually made so that you guys can print out and sort of like follow along. So I will link that down below. And it's great because you can practice your other clairs, but if you simply just want to do it for Clairgustance only or Clairalience only, you can absolutely make a whole entire calendar based off of smells. And again, remember as you're writing those out to kind of write what you think that means. Like if you smelled grass on one day, what does that mean? Does it mean you need to get outside? Does it mean that you're going to go to a park? Does it mean that you need to cut your grass? You can ask all of those questions and kind of make little notes next to it. This idea my guides actually gave me, but this is to ask your guides to give you a smell or a taste that's associated with them. And that way you can practice, so anytime that guide comes in or shows up, hopefully all of a sudden you get a smell or you get a taste and you're like, oh, I know that this guide is here. So that's another fun way that you can practice, because you'll probably be talking to your spiritual team a lot as you're reading for yourself or for others. And I think the absolute best technique for Clairalience and Clairgustance is to get brown paper bags. And basically what you want to do is find somebody else and ask them to put a piece of food. It doesn't always have to be food, but I would say start with food, and ask them to put food in a couple bags. And then basically you walk down the line and you try to ask, hey, what is in this bag? Hey, I want to taste and I want to smell what's in this bag. And then you can write down your guesses, and then when you're all done, you can look in the bags to see if you got anything right. And I think this really helps because it's something tangible in front of you. Afterwards, if you're like, maybe I don't know what this tastes like, you can eat it. But I think it's a fun way to do it because you're actually practicing with things in front of you and you're practicing with food. You can do a lot of precognitive guessing games as well with Clairalience and Clairgustance. Like if you're sitting down at a restaurant and you're looking at a menu and you don't know what to decide or what to pick, you can always ask, well, what is this one going to taste like? And what is this one going to taste like? And then you can sort of make a decision based on that. And then when they bring out the food, see if you were at all right on that. So Clairgustance and Clairalience is a little bit harder to use, but I would just say that as long as you're setting the expectation that you are going to receive psychic information through your taste or your smell, then I think you're going to be good and you're going to start receiving information that way. It's just like any other clair that can be strengthened. Have you guys ever had like a psychic hit that was a smell or a taste? I'm more curious about the taste because I feel like I've almost never had those. I've definitely had smells before. But let me know if this video helps. I hope it did. If it did, please give me a big thumbs up. Remember to check out all the other clairs in the description down below. There are a total of 6, and I feel like when you understand all of them, you kind of understand how they work together. And if you're ready and you're gung-ho and you want to practice some exercises, check out my playlist on psychic development exercises. But if you're new here and you just want the absolute basics and you kind of just want the foundation before you get too much further, check out my Start Here playlist. That's going to be super helpful for developing your psychic abilities and your clairs. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye!